Hi everyone, I'm Vito and today I'm here with Gary from @Play Creative, and we just had a really interesting discussion about Gary's workflow and how he's delivering projects. And on this video we want to show you how Gary is already saving more than half on every project that he's doing. Actually reduced the 4 months project down to 4 weeks, 4 months to 4 weeks. And as of starting to use WP Feedback Pro, there's 0 emails from clients, literally, and he's even not speaking to them anymore, yet they've never been happier. So it's good to see you, Gary, and thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me on.
And Gary, I wanted to kind of get started with maybe you can introduce yourself a little bit, tell us a little bit about your agency. How long have you been doing this?
Well, like you said, my name's Gary Smith. I'm started out as a designer, was a creative director, started working for some of the larger agencies that around the states and so forth. And then in 2007, I created my own agency, which, as we just mentioned, is called @Play Creative. And we've been working with clients from DC Comics to Hasbro to other clients like Ergo Baby and Disney. And in that process, we've learned how to do a lot of things. We've made some mistakes, but we've also learned how to do things more efficiently, which is your product is helping with.
Awesome. And so does the agency have any focus on particular clients, or it sounds like it's mostly like illustrations and creative from the names that you were talking about, right?
A lot of it are studios in the entertainment industry. So when we go to Disney, that also has ABC and some of their cable networks. We then were able to get something like Boom Studios, which is a graphic novel and comic book production company. So it usually goes around that industry, but we also get other people coming in. Like somebody has a product that sells kombucha, another client sells CBD, and another client is just a trucking agency. They see what we're doing for the larger agencies and they ask if we can help them out too.
That's perfect. And so what do you think is the, why do these guys come to you? What is the unique kind of a proposition that your agency has for these studios?
They get to work with me. No, okay, I'm just kidding. But it kind of is and it isn't true. I mean, a lot of the clients we get is based upon relationships. We have some clients that we've been working with specifically for like 12 years.
Right.
There's clients that I've been working with when I worked for other agencies that they literally have been working with me, so they wanted to work with my agency. But for the most part, they look at our portfolio and they say, okay, we like the kind of work that you're doing. Can you do that for us? And the distinct selling proposition is literally, we're going to deliver something to you in a creative way that is going to, elevate your brand.
That sounds great. And so how did this happen before you joined WP Feedback? I want to take you to kind of like before you started using the tool. What was your experience delivering projects to these clients? It's like for real clients, like corporates, isn't it?
Yeah, so the way we would always start out is first it's just a conversation between myself and the person who's the decision maker on that other end. So it might just be a project manager, it might be the owner or the CEO of a company.
Right.
Once they agree, they like what I've said, they've done what I've had a client say is a vibe check, then we do a scope of work, they sign off on it, then we go through scoping and discovery to flesh that out. Scoping discovery has everything to do with trying to figure out what their budget is, who is their target market and demographic, whatnot. And that, I still say, would probably be a conversation. It should be a good chunk of time to figure out what we're doing. Then after that, we would jump into doing wireframes and so forth based upon the information that we've had. We've collected assets and we know what their brand is. Here's the wireframe. Here's all the content that goes on to each page, anything that's relevant. They would approve that. Then we would jump into, okay, what does it look like? And we would go through 2, sometimes 3 rounds of creative, which means we're designing 2 or 3 different looks and feels. They choose one and then we'll tweak it a few times. Great, they like that. Then we're going to start building a prototype, a functioning prototype. So now they're looking at that design as it exists, as it's living and breathing in a web browser. And then from there, we build out the rest of the site and make tweaks and then launch it.
Nice. And what was the kind of method of collaboration throughout the project? Like, is that mostly emails or are you going out to meet them even?
Well, let me just call it chaos. That was the standard process, is chaos. And what I mean by that is, before this whole virus thing happened, we would jump in the car and drive 20, 30 minutes if they're local to go sit in their conference room because the client never comes to you, or we would hop on a flight and fly over to another client
Wow.
and sit there for a few days or whatever, talking to them about their project. Then if it was straightforward, then there's some emails that would go back and forth, and they'd send an email, we'd send an email. The client might start another email thread. So now we're not tracking what was said about this thing over here.
No
Okay,
subject
wait, you put
lines.
it,
Yeah.
no subject line. I have a client literally, he's like, I don't believe in subject lines. I'm like, I don't believe in reading your emails then. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. I'm not gonna, I can't. Then we would jump over to Basecamp because Basecamp had some of the, but then the client didn't want to use Basecamp because they didn't have time. So it's a neat. I've had clients text message me information because they didn't know where to go. Do I go to email? Do I go to Basecamp? Do I go to, let's just send them a text at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
That's what I mean by chaos.
And then you copy paste it everywhere else, basically.
If I'm disciplined, then I copy and paste it into one place where myself and my team can take a look at it.
Right. And so throughout this process, were you thinking that something is wrong? Were you trying to solve this issue, or were you just accepting it as part of business?
For the most part, I started accepting it as part of business, and here's why. Because I had tried to solve it so many times by jumping over into multiple project management tools. I'd jump into Basecamp. I'd use whatever it was, and then I'd look at how it's actually affecting our process and the client's willingness to use it or not use this particular tool. Like I said, Basecamp,
Right.
it never worked. So that's why a lot of clients would revert back to what they knew, which was email or phone call. I still have a client that wants to just call me. I haven't put them onto this particular tool yet, but they just call me. I'm like, I'm not going to remember what you just said. Can you send me an email at least?
Yeah, you got to bring them on board as well.
Yeah.
So if that kind of if that was the mindset that is okay, this is how we do things, and I was under the same situations for a long time as well, trying to figure it out, jumping between platforms, and then finally you're kind of saying, okay, fine, I guess that part of the struggle is 80% of the project is actually not design, is battling it out with the client. So what kind of made you feel like you need to fix this thing?
Well, like you were just saying, is if the project is to design and build a functioning, efficient website, shouldn't most of the time be spent designing and building that website instead of 80% of it just not even talking about it? I don't mind talking about it, but at least 50% of it is trying to figure out how to talk about it. What channel are we using? I can't find the thing that you said. It's not even the communication where you say something and I get it. It's you said something, but where did you say it? Well, did you put it? I can't find it. That's literally 50% of a project. I don't care who I've worked with, whatever agency I've worked with as an employee, with the best project managers and accountant directors, they still, like that was their job, just to track that stuff down.
Yes. Yeah, on the bigger agencies, there's full-on positions to do just that, to just keep on top of things.
Yep.
And so, what was like? Well, I understand the frustrations, but were you seeing it as a problem? Were you seeing it as like a true pain for the day to day, or that you need to fix?
I mean, every time, literally, if a client says, "I need this in, let's say, 4 weeks," but we've spent hours and hours just trying to figure out where they put something, or there's miscommunication, that's always a little bit of a setback, but that's always taking us a little further away from achieving that goal. And some of my clients are like, no, we're launching a product on January 1st. It's December. You have no choice but to hit that. And most clients, not to any fault of their own, they're just people who are passionate about their product or their job. They're inflexible of the launch time, but they still want to give as much feedback and input as possible. And like I said, we're spending half the time chasing that information, even if it's in Basecamp, even if it's in Trello.
And then you heard of Doubtful Feedback. How did you hear of us initially, Gary?
I think it was one of the Facebook groups. I want to say that it was in one of the WASP groups that Michael Short put together.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm positive he's the one that told me about it. Yeah, Michael is cool.
Yeah.
He actually looked at it and he said, you might want to check this out. And I asked him, is he getting, he's like, I already bought it. Don't worry about it. So I'm like, all right, I trust you. So I'm going to jump on board. And at first it was foreign to me because all things different. But when I literally just took a little bit of time to figure out how to communicate it to a client and how to use it, There's no, we have to use it.
So I know, Gary, that you joined pretty early on, like really one of some of the first few months since we launched the product. But I also know that it took you almost a year to start and implement it into the business. Why did you think like why was the gap? What kind of what made you just put it aside for a minute before you jumped in and really experienced the power of it?
Well, first, I'm a creature of habit, like most people, and I'm used to doing it this way, even though I know that way is not as efficient and it's, like I said, sometimes chaotic. That's what I'm used to.
Right.
But even more so, at the time, I had clients that were big enough to influence the way that I do things. Some of the larger clients who literally would say, "What do you want me to do? You want me to log in?" I'm not going to do that. I'm going through email. That's it. So at that point in time, I'm like, there's a lot of money on the line. Do I want to force it? And once I've already had that relationship with a client, it's really hard to change them to do something else. So the reason why it took so long is, as I started onboarding new clients, before I even teach them any way that, however I work, before they get used to working with me, I'm saying, we're using this tool. And they go, okay.
Yeah.
So now they're not expecting anything different.
They accept it as a fact.
Yeah. And I do have clients that I've been working with for over a decade where I present it to them differently now than I did a year ago. I say, I've installed a feature on your site, a new feature on your site that's going to make it so much easier for you to communicate to me. It's all about you.
Yes.
And they go, okay, great. And then I record a little Loom video. I might get on a call with them for like 5 minutes. I say, you click on this, you type, you hit submit. And then I'll come back and say something to you. And it looks like we're doing a text message about this one thing. And they're like, oh, okay, great. They literally don't want to send me an email anymore. Perfect. Some of them still do, but.
And then, so since you started using this, what kind of results are you seeing in terms of the efficiency of the project or even the headaches that you were experiencing before?
Well, first, I'm not chasing information. The client's not chasing information from an email that might have different topics or no topic, no subject, or it's in Basecamp, or it's in Trello, or it's in a text message. The client is now looking right here. They don't have to think about it. It's just really streamlined the communication, which then means that the amount of time spent communicating went from, let's say, a week, 2 weeks over the course of the project, down to just literally, do you like this? Yes. Check the box. Does this look right? Yes. Check the box. So it's literally cut probably about 30, 40, 50% of time out of the project.
That's amazing. And will we talk just before this call? I showed you a few other kind of additional ways where you can leverage this even further. And I'm excited to see. Well, we're gonna do a catch-up call in 6 months, see how that further kind of reduced the completion time. But that's already amazing. Yeah,
I'm like trying to get off the call because I want to go implement what we just talked about into a project that I just started yesterday. The only thing I've done is set up the subdomain. That's it. Nothing else.
That's perfect.
I'm looking forward to trying that.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Well, I'll ask you just a few more questions before we wrap this up, and I want to try and ask you in terms of like what have you seen within the business or maybe even within your life that improved after systemizing your communications in this way?
There's a lot less stress. I mean, there's a lot less anxiety. And the reason I say that again is if a client has given me a crucial piece of information or even a piece of content, here's the paragraph that I want to go right there. And it's somewhere in one of the email threads is improperly labeled and it's not even its own email. It's inside of the email that was talking about how are you. There's anxiety of, okay, I can't find it. I got to go back to the client and ask about it. Now I look unorganized because I didn't cut and paste it. No, it's right there. I know where it is. Where is it? It's right there. So I don't have to think about that anymore. All that anxiety goes away.
That's awesome. And you also told me that you managed to remove some of the tools that you were using for years now, right? With Basecamp, for example.
Yeah, I never really liked using Basecamp anyways. I know it's the conversation about one thing, but it was a conversation, at least for what we do, about one thing, but that thing is over here. So we always had to figure out how to map back and forth. Basecamp became pretty much obsolete for the way that we work when we started working with WP Feedback, and here's why. Basecamp did two things for us. We had a conversation with the client and Basecamp about what the project was, but then they would give us content. Here's the paragraph that we want to go on the homepage in the second section, is what they would say. And then here are the assets that we want to go on the about page in the third section. So we're like, Now with WP feedback, if, for example, it's the about page and it is the second section, they go to that section, they click a button, they paste the text into it.
Yeah.
But
They
what
don't
about
need to
the asset? Well,
describe
here's the
it
image.
or, yeah. Awesome.
It's all exactly right there where it needs to go.
And well, a lot of people use project management systems just to get that snapshot of how the project is progressing or how things are going in terms of the tasks that are happening on there. So like, have you managed to kind of remove that completely and use the dashboard fully?
Yeah, we used to use something like that if we're disciplined enough, like Trello. Here's a task.
Right.
Now it's
Yeah.
moved over here. Now it's like, ugh, but that's still happening over here, but the website is over there. So getting rid of that. Did you change the logo? Yes, just a checkbox. I haven't had a chance to farm things out to my team yet with this, but I'm looking forward to it because now I can say this is assigned to you. Oh, you're
Yeah.
done? I see that you're done because it's a checkbox. I don't have to
Yes.
call you. I don't have to talk to you about it, chase you. I'm
Exactly.
actually looking forward to that part. But yeah, it's made things a lot easier to track.
That's awesome. And so if we would want to need to kind of quantify the ROI on this tool for your business, Gary, how would you describe that?
Well, if I were to, and I can't do it dollar for dollar, but if I were to try to quantify it, like I said, I would go back to the amount of time it takes just to communicate versus the amount of time it actually takes to design and build and launch a website.
Right.
Like I said, on a 4-month project, a third of that time, sometimes more, depending on the sophistication of the client and the organization of the client and ourselves, that could take up half the time just talking to them.
Yeah.
So my dad used to always tell me, like, if you want to do a thing or you want to hire somebody to do a thing, what's your hourly rate? What's your time worth versus what they're charging? Well, my hourly rate is more than, so then I can say that if I were to do the math, we would have saved a considerable amount of money had we been using this tool before. And I wouldn't say saved, we would have pocketed a lot more money.
Exactly. It's a pure profit that you're generating by doing these things because the price remains the same for the project. It's just that it takes half the time.
Yeah. Which is something we talked about.
Yeah, exactly. So now I know that Mike kind of got you on board when it comes to WP feedback, but what made you pull the trigger when you first saw it?
I saw that you were solving a problem that we have. That I've had every place I've ever worked, every client I've ever had, it's been the same exact problem, and it's trying to communicate with specificity on a project, on a website. And now with one of your later features, even the layout of a design, a static comp. When I saw that, I'm like, yeah, okay, that premise is valid. I'm willing to invest whatever you were asking at the time. Yes, that's worth it just to solve that premise. And I also jumped on board in the beginning because I don't remember if I talked to you or I saw a roadmap or I talked to some people and we know they're legit and they're always innovating. Like, look how many changes they made, releases they've made in this short period of time. So I'm like, I knew you guys were behind this product fully. So that made me comfortable to know if I don't use this for 6 months, it's going to be that much better when I do. And it has been. You guys have evolved this thing at a great pace.
That's awesome. Thank you. And well, I know that a lot of people that are listening to this video, they are kind of already complacent, I think is the term, when it comes to how things are happening in the industry. Like you said, and it's the general kind of consensus that these things just take time, no matter what agency, no matter what size, from freelancers to big ones. So even though and also a lot of them already tried to solve this problem so many times before with so many tools that promise this and promise that, and I can even understand, being an agency owner myself, when people hear this result, hearing from 4 months to 4 weeks kind of projects and these kind of statements, it might even seem like it's too good to be true. So what would you say to these people that are watching this video right now?
I would tell them to pause and really think about a small, medium, or large product. Let's take a large project, excuse me, and think about how much time you spend just communicating to your client. Not only that, just trying to make sure that you guys are talking about the same thing. What would happen if you removed 90, 95%, or 100% of the miscommunication? How much time would you solve? Or how much time would you save? how much easier would it be to execute a thing when you knew that for a fact that's what the client wanted?
Oh, yeah.
That's how I looked at it, and it's actually working out that way.
That's awesome. So, who do you think this tool is a good fit for, from your experience?
Anybody working on a project, and what I was saying earlier is, I believe you originally designed this to work on websites.
Yeah.
But as a designer, sometimes I'm just this, let's say I'm designing, just for the sake of this conversation, I'm just thinking about it now. Let's say I'm designing a business card.
Yeah.
Let's say I'm designing a print piece, a movie poster. I can drop that into WP Feedback, go over to the graphics tab, and now they can annotate directly on every part of that movie poster. Change this font to a sans serif font, change this color. It's still right there. We're both looking at the same thing.
Yes.
I'm not looking at something that they threw into an email or a screenshot or whatever. It's very clear. So it's basically the short answer. Anybody who's doing anything visual.
It's for them. So just to kind of wrap it up, like why should someone that is listening to this video, these guys, every person that is doing something visual, why should they take action right now?
Well, they should take action right now, because I know most of the people listening to this right now would agree that they're spending a lot of time chasing emails. Well, the short answer is that, you should listen. You should take action now, because you're going to save time. That's the short answer.
Okay, awesome. And just going back to kind of your experience there, Gary, what would be, after working with these kind of companies and having experience both as an employee in an agency as well as an agency owner yourself, what would be your number one piece of advice for agencies that are listening to this video?
Just force yourself to adopt this process. And I won't say force, but strongly encourage your clients to adopt this process. There's oftentimes a little discomfort when we do something different, when we step into the unknown. But once you get comfortable with it, the client will become comfortable with it. I'd even say the faster you become comfortable with it, the faster the client will become comfortable and adopt it. Once you do that, everything changes. Just force yourself to adopt this new process, and you'll see the difference.
That's awesome. And finally, Gary, where can people learn more about you and your agency?
Yeah, that's great. I like that. I can plug it. It's at playcreative.com, and that's A as in alpha, T as in Tom, play, Play, creative.com, at playcreative.com.
That's perfect. Well, thanks a lot for joining me today, Gary. And yeah, I'm looking forward to doing this follow-up call and learning a little more about how the process even systemized it further. So thanks again, and speak soon.
Yes, sir. Thanks for your time.